The Rams did something in the 2025 draft that could set their franchise up for the next decade. That's coming up next on Locked On Rams.
You are Locked On Rams, your daily Los Angeles Rams podcast network, your team every day.
What is up, and welcome to another episode of Locked On Rams, your daily podcast covering your Los Angeles Rams. Free and available wherever you get your podcast. Locked On Rams, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We're also available over on YouTube, so if you haven't yet, do us a huge favor. Hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell, and if you want to support every episode, drop a like and a comment down below. Also, podcast listeners, write us a review. We'll read on the show. My name is Doug McCain. You can follow me on X and Instagram at DMAC_LA. I've covered LA sports for over a decade, 24/7 sports, Bleach Report, SI, Dodgers Nation. As always, I'm joined by the Rams pre-half and post-game show host for the Rams flagship radio station, ESPN 710 LA. He's in his 11th season covering your Los Angeles Rams, the People's Champ, Mr. Travis Rogers. You can follow him on X at Travis Rogers. And on today's show, we got our keys to a victory over the Bucs. We're talking some Aaron Donald, some late injury news. Also, we'll talk a little big picture stuff. Les Snead getting a lot of love for rebuilding the Rams, and because of the Falcons this season, really putting them in a great position next season. But first, this episode of Locked On Rams is brought to you by our friends over at Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. All right, Travis. So, we get into the news, analysis, all that stuff, the nitty-gritty. I'm always looking for different ways to kind of start the show, maybe a little bit of a surprise. Read this story about Rams legend Steven Jackson. I don't know if you saw this. He once knocked out his teammate, center Jason Brown, at halftime.
Yes.
Wild story. Steven Jackson just absolutely knocked. He was, first of all, going after his offensive line coach, and basically ends up just knocking out his offensive lineman. And he was basically saying, hey, you guys got to get your expletive together. And they're like, what? And then he's going for the coach, and someone tells him to chill. When you think, dude got knocked out.
Yeah, let me ask you this, and all of our everydayers out there, just whether it is a coworker, maybe somebody that you're in a relationship with, or whatever it is, what's the reaction when you tell someone to chill or calm down or relax? The exact opposite is what you get. You get an escalation in hostilities. This is what happens. Then you do not get somebody to calm down. You get to see that story. Not surprised. I've gotten to meet Steven Jackson, talk to Steven Jackson. Really nice guy. Really liked him. But when I met him, that is a very, very big man. That is a very strong man. So even with an offensive lineman standing in front of him, I don't think he's backing up from anybody. So if you tell him to relax, he probably won't.
Yeah, I mean, just think about, you're not going to see Kyron Williams knock out Coleman Shelton, right? It's a different era of football that, quite frankly, I kind of miss, to be honest with you. But so you got Aaron Donald Day on Sunday. I don't know if you've seen the bobblehead, one of the best bobbleheads I've seen. We know that you got Baker Mayfield coming back at Sunday Night Football. The interesting thing heading into this one is this is a Bucs team that has suffered several injuries. Mike Evans out, Bucky Irving, they were hoping to get him back. It looks like he's going to be out. They could get Chris Godwin back. But this whole team has the flu, it looks like. And they've been ill. They've been kind of sick. Looks like the Rams do have some sort of injury advantage, but we also know, too, the Rams are dealing with their own injuries to Rob Havenstein, Tyler Higbee, and Quentin Lake. And we did hear from Nate Landman, who is the guy who that Jared Verse said is going to be stepping up in the vocal role with Quentin Lake out. So kind of one of the big questions was who would step up for Quentin Lake as a player, and we talked about that this week. But it looks like as far as the vocal leader, that's going to be the Land Shark.
Yeah, we had Kobe Turner on my radio show the other day, and he brought up Landman too. I asked him that question about who kind of steps into that Quentin Lake role as far as the vocal leadership goes, and he mentioned Landman as well, and talked about what an unbelievable amount of energy and just incredible intensity that he brings to the huddle. So Landman stepping into that role, not a huge surprise. He's been, we talk so much about how good Matthew Stafford has been and the addition of Devontae Adams and, Poona Ford changing the run game, and all of those things are true. But my goodness, man, with Landman, the way he's played and the way that he's been able to get the ball loose and the way that, that's a position that you and I have talked about a lot, Doug, that the Rams have not put, a ton of value on over the years. And that Landman has come in and just, he may usually just cycle guys through there one after the next. And I think he's earned an opportunity to stay here for a while, because I don't think that they're 8-2 without him. He almost single-handedly won that Texans game on opening day where he punched the ball out. It seems like he gets the ball loose once or twice a game. So yeah, that he's going to slide into that role is not a huge surprise to me. And then again, there's one other guy too that the Rams are short this week. It's Xavier Smith. No word on whether or not he's cleared concussion protocol, but if you're still in it at this point, you at least have to think that it's possible that he's not going to be able to go on Sunday. So Rams might be shorthanded as well.
Yeah, it's that point of the season where you're just hoping to get on the good side of injury luck as much as possible. Xavier Smith was back at practice yesterday, but with Tutu Atwell, the Rams kind of need that third receiver. Xavier Smith is certainly a guy that, when this offense is firing all cylinders with one last tight end, he's a guy who could get a couple targets here and there. But that's kind of one of the first, I think, big keys of this game is, does this Rams offense get back to the one that we saw before Seattle that was pumping 30-plus points per game? Matthew Stafford just throwing 4 touchdowns and dominating. Do we see that offense again? Because the Bucs, they got 44 points to a Bills team that clearly is not a great Bills team. 3 on the ground, yes, and Matthew Stafford's not going to run into touchdowns like Josh Allen as much. But Matthew Stafford last week, 130 yards, 2 touchdowns. That's not the MVP Stafford that we've seen. I think that's a Sean McVey, hey, the enemy has a say, and the Seahawks are a really good defense. They did a lot of things to slow this Rams offense down, so credit to them. But Stafford, 22 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. He's riding that streak right now. He had 27 touchdowns on the year, leads the NFL. So if this is a Rams team that gets back to the offense that we saw last 4 weeks before this last win, I think they have a really good chance to at least go 30-plus on the Bucs.
I think that, like what you said is right. I think that the offense being, not nearly as explosive as it had been more or less the entire season against Seattle has a lot more to do with Seattle than it did with the Rams. I think that Seattle is that good of a defense. I think that Seattle is going to give, I was reading something yesterday that Seattle has 20 turnovers this season. Wow. 20. And they're 7-3. Do you know how good your defense has to be if your offense has turned it over 20 times and you're 7-3? So I think that speaks to the quality of Seattle's D. Now, if Tampa is able to slow down that offense the way that Seattle was, then I think we're like that. Like you just mentioned, Buffalo was able to move the ball almost at will. Now, Josh Allen is a different quarterback than Matthew Stafford, but I'm with you. I would be surprised if the Rams don't score 4 touchdowns. I would be surprised if they don't get to 30, if they don't get really close to it. I think this is going to look a lot like what we saw against San Francisco and New Orleans and Jacksonville and some of these other teams where the Rams offense has been really, really good, because I don't think the Rams offense went bad all of a sudden. I think Seattle's is just that good.
I agree. I think that it's going to feel like a little bit of a breath of fresh air for this offense, not having to go against that Seattle defense. It's going to feel like a drop-off for sure. Another, I think, big factor in this one is the difference in Seattle and the Bucs. The Seattle team, they can generate pressure without sending anyone. They blitz right towards the bottom of the league around 17-18% of the time. They're able to get pressure with Leonard Williams and Lawrence and that beast of a team. The Bucs are a different situation. They blitz about as much as any team in the NFL, 31.1% of the time. It's the 3rd highest rate in the NFL. And this year, Matthew Stafford has been money against the blitz all season. So I think that's kind of one of the games within the game is when Stafford identifies that, we know that Tampa's going to use zone coverages, try to manipulate that. And I think that this could be one of those days where Stafford just really cooking just because he's been really good against the blitz all season.
I think that anybody that listens to our Locked On Rams pod, Doug, knows that you and I are both, significantly in the bag for Matthew Stafford. We're both huge fans of his, but this is why, right? That one of the reasons, sure, he can make every throw and he could do the no-look thing and the sidearm thing, and that's really fun to watch, and it's awesome, don't get me wrong. But the thing that makes him, in my estimation, is he's been around the block a million times, and there's nothing he hasn't seen. There isn't any sort of move that he doesn't know the counter move to. So I love it when teams blitz Matthew Stafford. The numbers that you just read off, I think, are a confirmation of what I felt, which is send more because he's going to kill you. If you think that you're going to confuse him or make him make a quick decision and make a bad decision, good luck with that, because he can make a quick decision. He's going to make the right decision. He knows where the soft spot in the defense is if you send that extra guy, and he's going to make you pay for it. I think the thing that he's going to struggle, it's the same thing that when you were able to put pressure on them without sending extra guys is where they struggle, because the coverages are still really strong if you're able to get pressure with your regular pass rush. That's what Seattle was able to do. I don't think that's what Tampa is going to be able to do. So if they need to think that they're going to speed him up with an extra guy, I love it. Matthew Stafford against the blitz is a bet that I'll take all day long. Yeah,
he's going to see those extra rushers, and I think the equalizer in this game, if you're the Bucs, is can you find a way to turn the ball over? Can you find a way to get some interceptions? They're tied for third most in the league when it comes to interceptions. They've got 10. That's actually tied with the Rams. And there also is another similarity with the Rams is they're top 3 in turnover differential. You got 16 takeaways and you got 7 giveaways. So, I mean, that is right there in the top 5. And they've had some injuries. They got a young corner, Jacob Parrish, who's really stepped up in that nickel role. We saw what the nickel's able to do for them against the Seahawks. So that's the big thing is you got to play clean football, not turn the ball over. By the way, you dropped some like 6-7s recently. I mean, and then this last thing you said was what makes Stafford him. Did you mean like him as a person or like him? Like all caps him, right? I caught that, man. Jeez.
He's him.
Gen Z Travis. Hey, you got to do a segment. Gen Z Travis Rogers.
Bet.
There it is. Got Roki Saki and Blake Snell on the show. All right, guys. Coming up next, more keys to victory. Also, we're going to take a big picture look at the Rams, because did they absolutely cook this past draft, putting themselves in a great position to continue to restock this roster with talent? That's coming up next on Locked On Rams.
This episode of Locked On Rams is brought to you by Prize Picks, right? We're making decisions every single day, but on Prize Picks, being right, that gets you paid. So don't miss any of the excitement this season, whether you're following the NFL, which Doug and I love, the NBA, which is going on in full swing right now, or maybe you're a fan of both. There's no better time to jump in on the action. And if you haven't tried Prize Picks yet, it is awesome because it's a super simple way to play. You just pick more or less on at least 2 players' stats, and if you get them right, that's it. You win. It takes less than 60 seconds to make a lineup, and you can play anywhere that Prize Picks operates, and more on a player's entire stat line, right? Like you want more on Steph Curry, for instance, his points, his threes, and his assists, all in the same lineup. You can do it on Stacks, but it's only on Prize Picks. So download that Prize Picks app today. Use the code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONNFL for $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks. It's good to be right.
And we are off and running here on Locked On Rams. Thank you for making Locked On Rams your first listen every single weekday. Free and available wherever you get your podcasts. Locked On Rams, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Also, big shout out to those everyday listeners out there watching and listening to every single episode of Locked On Rams. I want to thank you guys. Lots of new listeners, lots of new viewers lately, and we love having you guys on. We got a lot of comments lately, too. People saying they watch the show every single day. We got this family from Pennsylvania. Oh. And I guess they all sit around the channel. They all sit around the TV, and they watch us every single day, like on the big screen. So that's kind of
Thanks.
They say they especially love Travis's insight too, by the way.
Awesome.
Which is awesome. But all right, Travis, we'll get back to the game. Trust me. But I kind of want to switch gears and kind of go big picture in this next segment, because the Falcons pick, the Rams acquired, it could now be worth 3 times what they paid for it. So, of course, if you're an everyday listener, you always know about the transactions, but especially this one. Back in the 2025 NFL Draft, the Rams gave the number 26 pick and the 101st pick for the Falcons' number 46 and 242nd pick, as well as their first-round pick in 2026. And at first, you're like, that looks like a pretty fair deal, right? They went up, they got James Pierce. They're out of Tennessee. That's their guy they wanted. But now, heading into week 11, that first-round pick sits at number 8 overall. And when you look at the direction of the Falcons season, it looks like their quarterback, Michael Penix, is out for the year. That pick could get even higher for the Falcons. Good luck for the Rams. But it looks like Les Snead absolutely cooked with that transaction, Travis.
It could be one of those picks that sets you up for an entirely another run, right? The Rams are where they are right now is awesome, right? The Rams are right near the top of the NFC. Conceivably by the end of the weekend, they could be the number 1 seed in the NFC if Philadelphia stubs their toe against the Cowboys and the Rams take care of business. And the window is wide open right now. And the window is Sean McVay, it's Matthew Stafford, it's Jared Verse, it's Kyron Williams, it's Devontae Adams, Puka Nacua. They got a really good team, and their end may inform what happens after that. Like if the Rams win the Super Bowl, which by the way is not a far-flung idea, it's certainly in the realm of possibility. Maybe Matthew Stafford decides to do a Peyton Manning walk-off shot and say, "See you later, I'm done." 17 years, 2 Super Bowls, et cetera, et cetera. Great. Now you got 2 draft picks to maneuver to try to find your quarterback of the future. If he decides that he wants to come back for more, also great, because you still have an incredible quarterback that's at the peak of his powers, but you can go start to fill in some of these holes that you may have in particular. Maybe you can solidify your offensive line. Maybe you can get more talent on the defensive side of the ball, work in the back end of your defense. You have so many different things you can do with high-level draft picks. This isn't where you have to find value in the 4th, 5th, 6th round, which the Rams have been really good at. But look at what happens when you pick near the top. You get Jared Verse. You get Braden Fisk. You get propensity to execute those picks at a high level. And if you give them a pick inside the top 10, maybe inside the top 5, I mean, I love this. It's one of the best deals I've seen them make. We went a decade without any first-round picks, and now you have an abundance of first-round picks right as the team is still at the very top. Usually you get first-round picks when you're at the very bottom. It's an incredible opportunity.
Absolutely. I think you absolutely laid it all out right there, right? I mean, they have options while they're still contending. It usually does not work that way.
Nope.
And they don't really have these contracts that you feel terrible about. Look at their quarterback, because of his age, isn't on one of these mega deals, Joe Burrow type deals, Lamar Jackson type deals, Josh Allen type of deals. You got a defense that was one of the most inexpensive defenses in the NFL, and you got all types of currency to be able to retool this roster. You got draft capital, you got financial muscle. The Rams are like, hey, what method of payment do you take? Crypto, black card, cash, credit, check, whatever it is, equity. Like we got you, right? We can find a way to acquire talent, and it'll be interesting to see what they do, because if I told you right now they're going to use that to trade up and get a quarterback, there's no guarantee that's that. You're going to get a veteran player that could be made available from another team. They could go that route, but the great thing is you trust the organization, because more often than not, these moves have made big differences in the future of this team. And the great thing too is, outside of 2022, where they were ravaged by injuries, they haven't fallen off a cliff in a league that's all about parity and is designed for winning franchises to fall off.
Well, you're right. The 2022 season, and look, they went 5-12. It is what it is, but there's a very clear explanation as to why they went 5-12. It wasn't just like, hey, they stink. It was they're missing 3/4 of their team. My favorite thing I say, they were literally pulling guys out of the police academy to play on the offensive line. So, I mean, that just tells you where they were. And here's the other thing. And obviously, the window that we've talked about is Sean McVay and your quarterback. Sean McVay, think about who he's had as his quarterbacks. Jared Goff, when we first saw him, we're like, oh my God, a player. Matthew Stafford went from a very good player to a Super Bowl champion. We saw him rehabilitate Baker Mayfield. We've seen him go out and work with these guys, Kirk Cousins in Washington when he had him, and just really kind of polished these guys up. So if he sees a guy in the draft that he likes, let's go get that guy. If he sees a player on another roster that they can use those picks, reassuring feelings to know that your guy that's going to select the most important person on your team, the quarterback, has such a good feel for that position, has such a good eye for what it is that they want. So whatever they do at quarterback, look, I hope Matthew Stafford stays here until he's 150 if he can still play like this. But if you do decide that you need to go in a different direction, the guy that chooses the direction is probably the best guy in the business at it. That gives you a ton of confidence.
No doubt about it. That's the biggest thing is he has equity with the fan base. You have proven results, and then you just get the right guys.
Yeah.
And you're probably wondering, how are we going to tie this into Aaron Donald? I'll tell you how we're going to tie this into Aaron Donald. A few years ago, they went to AD before the season. We're like, hey, Aaron, it's going to be a very different defense. We're going youth movement. We're not going to be spending a ton of money on this defense. And how did Aaron Donald respond? He said one thing. He was, just make sure that they care. All I care about is that they care. And now the Rams, they actually use that when drafting players. Quote, what's their care factor? So Aaron Donald's had this lasting impact on the way they evaluate players. And because they went with that strategy when they did, it was development. It was trying to see which guys you could hit on. And those guys have turned out to be the foundation players for this defense. So give Aaron Donald a lot of credit. He could have been like, man, I'm a Hall of Famer, first ballot, best ever. You better put talent around me. I want to make a last dance. He didn't do that. And I always respect AD for a lot of reasons, but
it's awesome. And I love that you brought that up. Look, anybody that listens to my radio show, if you've been an everyday or here, I think you probably got a pretty good idea. I'm not the world's biggest rah-rah guy. I'm not a big, locker room speech guy and all that stuff. I like good players that are smart and play hard, right? That seems to me to be the key to success. That being said, I think what you just talked about with Aaron Donald and what Sean McVay is clearly a master of is culture. Like, I used to hear that kind of stuff and roll my eyes like, come on, man, just go get good players. What are we talking about? I was wrong, right? Did Sean McVay and the care factor, that's culture. You want guys that are in there that do the right things, that are taking care of their bodies, that are smart, that do care about the results of these things. You get a room full of people like that. It makes a massive difference. And you can tell, we've talked about it a million times here, D-Mac. The Rams don't do messy. They don't do loud. They don't have a bunch of goofballs. And when they do, they take care of it really quickly. It goes out the door, or they fix it. It is the most low noise team in the whole league, and that's not a coincidence.
Wait, Travis, you mean to tell me you don't like big rah-rah in your boy Dan Lanning? You don't like Dan Lanning before Colorado was like, hey, they're fighting for clicks, we're fighting for wins? I thought that was a bar right there. By the way, you got Oregon USC. Oregon USC, call it right now.
You know this, D-Mac. There's exceptions that prove every rule, and Dan Lanning might be the exception. By the way, that game this weekend in Eugene, that scares me a little bit. I think SC's pretty good. I still take my Ducks, but last I looked, it was 10.5. I don't know if I'll take the Ducks. I think it's going to be close.
I'm a freak. I watched 2011 Oregon USC in its entirety last night, and that was really. You had Dat, you had LaMichael James, you had Matt Barkley. Remember when Anthony Barr ended Matt Barkley's career? By the way, I mean that was.
Hold on, before we go past it, you just mentioned LaMichael James. My all-time favorite crowd sign in the history of sports involved LaMichael James, where an Oregon fan had a sign over his head that said, LaMichael means the Michael. And I will never forget it. It's an amazing sign, and it will live rent-free in my head for the rest of my life.
I love that. That's amazing stuff, man. And we love a good college game day sign for sure, man. I love that, man. But coming up next, we get some more on the Bucs. Throw out some predictions. Baker Mayfield back at SoFi Stadium. I'm going to recap that Baker Mayfield SNF. I still haven't taken my victory lap for predicting this would be a nationally televised standalone game. Not going to do that. That's not what I do. Not a victory lap, guys. So I will not do that at all. But that's coming up next on Locked On Rams.
The NFL season is in full swing. And honestly, there's nothing better than being in the stadium surrounded by fans cheering on your team. But let's be honest, the hard part can be getting tickets, and it can be a huge hassle. Between queues, login screens, prices jumping at checkout, it can be a real monster. It can kind of really stink. So that's why I like to use Gametime. It's the app that gives the advantage back to us, the fans. Gametime, it's fast, it's easy, and authentic tickets delivered on time, and of course, at the best price. Plus, and here is my favorite part about Gametime, all fees are included. So the price you see is the price you pay, right? How many times have you seen a ticket? You like the price, you like the seat, you're like, hey, let's go. Tap, tap, tap. And then when you go to checkout, there's all these fees added on it. It's not even close to what you thought you were getting. It's faster, it's cheaper, and it's less stressful than any other way that I've ever bought tickets. So Locked On NFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's code Locked On NFL, LOCKEDON NFL for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Gametime today.
And welcome back to Locked On Rams. Thank you for making Locked On Rams your first listen every single weekday. Free and available wherever you get your podcast. Locked On Rams, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Okay, Travis, when you brought up that game day sign, I don't know if you could tell, but I was a little shook because I had a little PTSD because you mentioned Oregon and college game day signs. And I remember one that I hated the most when Oregon was playing UCLA once, and it was an Oregon fan that said game day didn't exist the last time UCLA won the Rose Bowl, and it had the L as red. And I was like, that hurts. And then that one crushed me. I still think about that one. Another one, too, that actually I thought was awesome once was Steve Urkel went to UCLA, and then it was Stephon Urkel went to Oregon. Remember the episode where Urkel was cool? And he was Stephon. So they had like him in like the cool suit pointing, and then they had like the did I do that good? So yeah. By the way, Steve Urkel also went to South Pass High School too. Shout out. But
I didn't know that.
SPHS. White. Exactly right. But yeah, so I'm totally shook over here thinking of these traumatizing signs. So I'm trying to rebound here best I can. But getting back to this one, I think another one that's just a massive factor. That's the toughest one to really quantify is the Baker Mayfield factor, because the truth is when they started 5-1 and he was being included in the MVP talks, yet MVP chance, it was like the dream season for him. And it was looking like this was the true realization of the bottom when he went to the Rams to now MVP. It's a wild trajectory that you rarely see in this league, but he's had a sub 81 QB rating in 3 of his last 4 games. And he's always been a guy, high highs, some low lows. I think with the receiving core they have, the running game they're at right now, he's got to be at a A+ level to really feel like you can be an elite team, or at least an A. And that's kind of the big key is keep Baker at a B to a C in this one, not an A.
Yeah, look, I'm a huge Baker Mayfield fan, and that's a sentence I never thought would come out of my mouth. That when he came into the Rams a few years ago in that 2022 season, like we were talking about, and it was more like, yeah, what? I mean, why not? It can't be any worse than anything else you've had. And he comes in, and he just is terrific from the jump. And more than anything else, he brought energy, he brought swag, he brought this incredible aura to the Rams in a moment where they had none. They were completely flatlined. It wasn't like you went out and led them to a playoff spot or anything like that, but a team that was dreadful, he took to Tampa after that, resurrects his career, and like you said, this year was on an MVP trajectory before he lost a bunch of his guys on his offense. I think it has a lot more to do with that. But seeing what he did for the Rams is the same reason I'm scared for him to play against the Rams, because he's got that thing, man. He's got that thing that where when it's a big game, Sunday Night Football, and there's a little bit of a storyline, former team, he's got a chance to take out a team that a lot of people are saying is the best team in the league in the Rams. That's the sort of stuff that dude pulls off. That's kind of his legs. You know, anytime a quarterback can do that, it's a totally different ask of your defense. And look, he may be shorthanded. There may be no Chris Evans. Or Mike Evans, excuse me. There may no be a Bucky Irving or whatever. But that doesn't mean that dude can't do it single-handedly, because I've seen him do it before.
Yeah, and that's what's so tantalizing about him as a player. That's why you always fear going up against him, because sometimes you're like, wow, this guy looks like he could be the MVP and win a Super Bowl. And sometimes like, oh my goodness, the dude struggling with timing and accuracy and just delivering the football and finding his guys. And I think some of that has to do just with, like, he's not the most athletic guy, not the tallest guy, right? Everything has to kind of be right for him mechanically, and you have to give him protection and things like that. But I do want to point out too, I am like you. I don't think I've gone as 180 on a player as I have. Like I told you, my mom's Ohio State fan, so she, you know, when he planted the Oklahoma thing at the Horseshoe, he just kind of seemed like kind of one of those guys.
He loves to mix it up. He's not scared at all. He loves to tweak people and prove them wrong, and then he's going to tell you were wrong. That's what he does. Yeah,
no, 100%. I think too, it was obviously, first of all, you put on those Rams horns and you give us something. You give us basically one of the only highlights that season. Yeah. And really, if you're going to rank the stories that year, it'd be that. I'll never forget Sean McVey talking about just the copious notes he was taking and just finding a way to get off the plane, get on the field and win a game, and just how that he literally said that made him fall in love with football again. And he does not gloss over what the Rams have meant to his career. But I was a big, like, for me, my wife like really loved him, and when my wife loves a dude, I just immediately start hating him, you know. and my whole thing I used to say was like, the amount of commercials he was on was not justified based on the performance in place. That's what I always had an issue with.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, no, when you look at like Peyton Manning and Patrick Mahomes, you're like, yeah, okay, I get it. But Mayfield's presence on non-game TV spots was like, this doesn't add up.
No doubt about it. By the way, when they were going onto the plane, the Bucs social media asked the players, they do like those quick hitter ones, and they were like, do you keep the shade up or down on a plane? Right? And then Baker Mayfield just looks at the social media person like with like the weirdest look, and he was like, if you keep that shade up during a plane, you're an absolute menace to society, right? Like, I mean, who does that, right? Keeps it up in the sun? That's crazy. You do that?
I like to make sure the plane's still in the air. I don't want to see that ground's coming up to meet me. I like to know that we're staying at the proper altitude. I like to keep my eye on that. And then as we start to come back down to the airport again, I like to make sure that the descent is nice and even. I don't need to see that ground rushing up at me.
Wow, that's pretty. I would not have predicted you being that guy. I mean, when you're pulling to LAX, especially at night, then that's the time to open it, right? I always, that's like the time to open it. For me, it's like I hate I hate turbulence. Is like I hate like if one little bump, and I'm looking around and I'm like, why isn't everyone screaming? You know what I'm saying? Like I always think, like, how are these people chilling? You know what I mean? Like.
That's why I'm looking, Doug. What if I'm the only one that notices that the ground is rushing up and I need to tell somebody and everyone else has got the window closed? And they're not seeing it. I could save everybody's life.
I'll send you a link to this Reddit thread about turbulence that'll change your life. Look, you'll get this plane was designed to get the worst turbulence times 1,000, right? But it's just air, you know what I mean? But it's not, right?
Over when you're pulling into the airport to catch your flight or whatever, and you see one of those ginormous planes coming into land, you're like, that thing's just hanging in the air. Like that's not supposed to be like that. How much does that thing weigh, and how is it in the air? Like if I take this Kleenex here and drop it, it drops, and that's a Kleenex, right? How in the world is a machine weighing hundreds of tons in the air? No, I don't want to know anything about it.
Now I'm just petrified. I'm gonna have to go full John Madden and just drive around the country, but I'll be in a PT Cruise or something like that. Now I'm petrified, but I got the Rams winning 31-20 in this one. I think you get back to the 30 territory. I know it seems like a lot. Sometimes they come out slow Sunday Night Football. I look at this Rams offense to put up points and get a big win. Seems like you got the Rams winning in this one.
I do. I think the Rams win, but I think it's closer than you have. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if it's like a 27-24 kind of situation. I think, or 31-28, something like that. I think it's I think it's 3.5, something in that window. I think the Rams do win, but I think it's a tough game. I think it's a close game.
I just want to see Harrison Mevis get a field goal attempt in this one. We need to see a thicker kicker get one through the uprights.
They haven't made a field goal since week 6.
Wow.
They haven't made a field goal since week 6. It's week 12. That's crazy.
I didn't realize it was that far back. Wow, that's wild. Credit to the offense, though.
I get no. And by the way, they've won almost all of those games, so it's obviously not been the thing that's kept them from winning. But you're going to have to make a kick at some point, and they haven't made one since week 6. They haven't tried one.
That's shocking. I'm telling you, this is going to be the week, though. This has to be the week. But that's going to do it for this episode of Locked On Rams. My name is Doug McCain. You can follow me on X and Instagram at DMAC_LA. And you can follow the People's Champ, Mr. Travis Rogers, at Travis Rogers. And until next time, whose house? It's Locked On Rams house. All right, man, you got to run, so I'll get this out and see you Monday.
All right, I'll talk to you then, D.
All right, peace out, Travis.